Oh, hello world. I'm your host, Data Mining Mike, and on this episode of the podcast, we're going to talk about conversations in generations, my grandmother's memories. Today we interview my grandmother, Delma Dunton Grubich. She is a generational traveler. Born in 1932, she lived a full and fascinating life. Her stories give you a better understanding of what life was like back then and a better appreciation of modern day advances. And that's called value. And because of that, you should like this video. Remember that sharing is caring. Please leave comments because they improve ranking and add prominence. Subscribing is what winners do, but smashing the bell is what legends do. This channel breeds legends. But first, a look into AI history. Since all artificial intelligence is statistical models, in 1930s, statistical computation teams of human computers were just getting started in the universities to study economic phenomena. At the time, statistics were limited to linear models, incorporating well-known statisticians such as Galton, known for the Galton points used in fingerprint identification. Also, the breakthroughs of Karl, Pearson, and Henry Fisher were the most utilized models. The key punch was the highest level of computational technology back then, and in 1937, an American statistician named John Anisoff created the early electric computer that could solve linear equations by combining IBM's key punch with an electrical circuit board. With these voice warm-ups, the first thing we'll do is like, how now, brown cow?
How now, brown cow?
Yeah, how now, brown cow? Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
I'm not sure. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers.
Yep. Seashells by the seashore. Some are red while others are blue.
Seashells. She sells seashores.
Yep.
Seashells by the seashore. Some are red and some are blue.
Good. Yep. So we got that. And then
now that's getting political.
Oh, that is. So now we'll do the notes. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, re, do.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, re, do.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Okay.
Yep. And then so I'll go, you say do, and I'll say a deer, a female deer. You say the ray, and I'll go through it.
Okay.
So you go ahead. So.
Okay, do.
A deer, a female deer.
Ray.
A drop of golden sun.
T.
Me, a name I call myself.
Fa.
A long, long way to run.
So.
A needle pulling thread.
Fa.
A note to follow, so.
T.
I drink with jam and bread.
That will bring us back to
do. A deer, a female deer. You say.
Ray.
A drop of golden sun.
T.
Me, a name I call myself.
Ray.
Fa.
Do, re. Oh, Ray. I said T. It's supposed to be Ray.
Me. Well, it goes do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, re, do. So,
No.
Me, a name I call myself. Fa.
A long, long
Way to run. So, a needle pulling thread. La, a note to follow. So, tea, I drink with jam and bread. That will bring us back to do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, re, do. Good. Now we'll
That's
listen.
enough of
And we are live. Hello, world. Welcome to the podcast. And we got Nama. Nama, tell the world about you.
Well, I guess the world is aware that I've been around for a little while, and it's amazing to me how just living a normal life and raising a family and then counting your blessings, it's a pretty good life.
I'd say so. So how old are you now?
I'm 91.
91. What year were you born?
1932.
What's your farthest back memory?
Oh, probably one of the most vivid was I think I was about 4, and we were, my mother and father and my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, we were going back east to visit Grandpa's family. And I was prone to nausea, automobile sickness. And we were on the top of a pass, and they were narrow roads at that time, and and I became sick, and my mother, realizing that I was going to project, grabbed the hat off of my dad's head, and I baptized the hat, and it got tossed, and my dad never bought another fedora hat again.
So he was a fedora wearer
Yeah.
until that day.
Well, it was a straw kind.
Huh.
Yeah. But anyway, and I can just remember looking down thinking, I'm going to barf. I'm going to barf.
Mm-hmm.
So that wasn't a very good memory. But I was an only child for 8.5 years. And so I was always looking for playmates.
Mm-hmm.
But my mom was very, very good. She being an only child, we had a lot more time together, alone.
Yeah, so you were an only child for 8.5 years. Where were you living at the time?
In Missoula, Montana, and that was my father had moved to Missoula with his family when he was about 10 years old from Iowa. And my mother was born in Montana, very near Missoula, out from Frenchtown.
Okay. So what was the reason? So let's go back to the French culture that exists in Montana.
Well, there was quite a large one in actually overall the state. A lot of French were farming, mainly farming, and property was very inexpensive at that time, and so but we had a lot of different people from different places. But the families that we came from had been there a long time.
Mm-hmm. So talk about how were the houses made back then?
Well, my grandparents' house was a nice old farmhouse. I was going to say, it was papered and painted, and it was a very nice house. And my grandmother loved to entertain, and she was a very good cook, and so she did a lot of entertaining and feeding people.
Were the appliances electric?
Oh no, and the home that my father made for us was actually just a 2-room kitchen and bedroom, and it was a wooden house, and he moved it with the help of his brother and father and some other uncles. He moved it an acre over. So we had an acre of house, And then when I was about 7, they built on the rest of the house. And it was stucco, and it was really comfortable. And we had water in the house, and although we also had an outdoor well, and we had, I'm trying to, certainly we had a radio, and and it was a kind of a one of the beginnings of radios with different, seemed like it had more lights in part of its workings. I don't know.
So were the roads paved?
No.
What year were the roads paved?
Well, in our neighborhood, we lived kind of almost just suburban because we all had about an acreage and some basic animals. So, but I think probably the street, we lived on Grove Street out in the Orchard Homes, which was a group of acreages, and our street was paved probably about the time that I was in the 3rd grade.
Okay. So talk about the transportation system. How hard was it? When did you guys get a car?
Oh, my dad had a car very early on.
Okay.
And so I think his first car was a 24 Chevy, or maybe 25. And as he would then get a better car, the old car went to my granddad and his brother, who were single. They were bachelors, and that lived just maybe a mile away from our house. And my grandfather had been a banker before he retired, and he retired right before the banks were failing. And so he really had made the move only because his wife my grandmother was not well, and she wanted to move to be with more family, and they came to Missoula. So that's how they got there. But I'm trying to think about what else we had. We had
how hard was
indoor plumbing.
So you had indoor plumbing. That's
yes,
good. 'Cause
right.
you had a well, though.
Yes,
you had an outdoor well. So you have to go and fetch water?
No. When it was just to begin with, yes. But then very quickly, Dad put it to power, and we had water in the house.
Okay.
But no washing machines, no fancy electrical things. It was basic. Wooden stove. But we did have a refrigerator fairly soon.
Okay, so before the refrigeration, how did people keep their stuff cool?
They had an ice box. My granddad had a big brown one, and he had a lot more ice in his, and ours was a much smaller one.
So talk about going and getting produce or grocery shopping. How much different is that now for what you have to consider?
Yes. Well, we of course had a garden and had chickens and eggs, and so there were many things that we didn't have to buy. And my mom Dad always kept a cow, and that cow had a calf every year, and so we had meat. And at one point, my dad had goats, which were he liked goat's milk really well, and so we had, I think, 3 or 4 goats, which were kind of an interesting relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Goats are not the most friendly neighbor.
Yeah. I bet they kept the grass down. Did you have grass?
Well, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we had our part was lawn, and then part was with an acre. A cow and a calf can survive with that. And my dad then bought alfalfa until later he bought 5 acres about a mile away that was separate, and he just raised that hay for our cows.
So where were you? No, I know where you were. What was it like experiencing the Great World War II in America? What was it like then? When was the first realization that we were in a major war? Did it even dawn on you?
When Pearl Harbor was bombed, it came with a great shock. And my friend Mary Lou and I had gone ice skating on a slough nearby. And, of course, it was December 7th, and so there was a lot of ice and snow. And so we were really cold when we got back to her house, and her mother told us that we were at war. And immediately we imagined that it was going to be coming. The planes would be flying over us, but actually it didn't change our living situation at all. And we were reassured. So it was just the way we lived that was different, because we very shortly had rationing. And so, but if you had a bit of a garden, in our situation, we were still pretty well self-surviving. But sugar and butter and flour a bit, all were rationed. And of course, shoes were rationed, and gasoline was really rationed. And those are the things that that involved my life at that time.
Okay. What about listening to radio programs? I'm sure it was all over. Like what was going on?
Yes. But it wasn't like, you didn't have news all day long. There were just specific newscasts, and then there were local news and entertainment, So there was it didn't just envelop us totally.
Mm-hmm.
We, of course, having uncles and neighbors going off to war, but my dad had had a job that saved him from going to war, because it was refrigeration and heating, and they were both skills that we needed to keep some at home. But as far as feeling impacted, as by then I was probably 8, 9, and 10, but it was far removed from us, except knowing that my uncles had been to war and came back, but they all came back. So it was it was just how you prayed every day for the war to be over.
So what military branches were your uncles in? Where were they at? Was it, yeah.
My youngest uncle that went to war was Wallace Marceau, and he was in Iwo Jima and New Guinea and in South Pacific, and had man-to-man combat, and was given a brass medal for belly crawling across hot fire or shooting to get to where they had more ammunition, and he never talked about it, and he didn't want anybody to know that he got a medal because it was going to frighten my grandmother. So we didn't talk about it. And
interesting.
Other uncles coming back, it wasn't a big deal. Now my dad had one warrior confidant that came back, and he said he had been in the South Pacific too, but he said, I know that you're interested, so I will talk about it just this time, but then I never want to talk about it again. And he told us funny things that happened. He told us sad things that happened. And he was just very generous to do it that one time.
So your uncle was a Marine who served in Iwo Jima?
No, my Uncle Wally was, I think Wallace was Army.
Okay.
And my Uncle Lee they were drafted. But no, Wallace, he went in. He wasn't drafted. He went in on his own. But now Uncle Lee was a farmer, and because he didn't have a big family, he was just had a wife, and she was teaching school, so he wasn't saved from going to war. So he was gone. But he came back.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really incredible. So they, especially Iwo Jima. What do you say about Iwo Jima? Is this Wally who went to Iwo Jima?
Wallace.
Okay.
Yeah, and I really didn't know that much about the battles. It wasn't, it really didn't impact us that much.
I just want to know what he said.
Well, I really can't remember. As I say, they didn't make it seem important.
Yeah, it is now.
As you well know.
Yeah, very important. So back then, in the 1930s, so you were born in 26.
No, I was born in 32.
Crap, sorry, I suck. So you're born in 32. I'm sorry, I conflated. The car was made in 20s. You're born in 32. What if somebody got hurt? Was there a 911? How did you communicate an emergency?
Like for a fire or an accident, or there'd just be a blast, a siren, in your neighborhood.
Oh, okay. So neighborhood sirens.
Yeah, and we had phones by then.
Okay.
We all had a phone.
So you could call. Yeah,
but as far as that, we were pretty self-sufficient, I think. We were.
So was there an ambulance that came if somebody got hurt? Was there an ambulance you could call and they would show up?
No.
Okay.
Nobody had an ambulance. And the fire department was all volunteer, mm-hmm. and it was kind of, it looked like everything was going to burn more than it was going to get saved, because they would come roaring up in this suit, and they would grab an axe and start chopping. And so they often did more damage than they preserved.
Interesting. Did they have water to put out?
A tank.
Okay, so they did. Was it one of those pumps that you had to hand pump it?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were. It was on a truck. Yeah. But all the neighbors came to watch because it was quite a show.
I bet. But was there a communal helping, or would they just sit and watch?
No, they would be helpful.
Okay.
But the crew were, most of them. There was in our community there was a florist, floral business, growing all the roses and all the flowers and bushes and stuff, and so most of those guys were, and the truck was kept at that facility, and so all the guys who were working in the shops would come and jump in and go.
Interesting. Yeah. So the one fire pump, was it wagon drawn, or did they?
No, it was
motor?
A truck.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
So the fire truck was at the florist's.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay, and then
they were growers, they weren't the fancy business. They were the growers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you had to. So if there was a fire, somebody had to. It was on this volunteer force to go to the major grower to get their water truck and drive it to the location and
put out the fire.
And most of the firemen are just going and whacking stuff. And then they're trying to put it out. Yeah, that must have been an interesting time back then. But there was no, like you said, there's no ambulance service. If you got hit, if you broke a bone or something, what do you do? Where's the nearest hospital?
Well, we did have good hospital service and a growing clinic with some good doctors, and so it was. We were, I think, adequately prepared, but it was pretty much you were on your own to get there, or to ask someone to bring you.
Yeah. So, talk about the Korean War. Where were you during the Korean War? And what was that like?
Well, it seemed like I was in high school, and once again, it really wasn't a whole lot. But then I went into nurses training, and at that point, I was more apt to be conscripted than my male cousins, because we were, just, I think there was a need for more nurse service.
Interesting. So it can, like a draft of nurses to go.
Yeah, and there was talk of it, but it didn't happen. I think enough females volunteered on their own just because they wanted to be doing that.
Yeah. So where did you meet Papa at?
Oh, well, I was at my psychiatric training in Warm Springs, Montana, and it was just the state facility for and so the girls we nurses were, by then we were all probably in our senior year to go to psych, and so we would all go in to have a beer and dance, and he asked me to dance. And so we met in a bar.
Okay.
That's Montana.
Well, it brings up a good point. How important was dancing back then?
It was very important.
Very important.
And we danced a lot.
It's a social grace. So what was your first dance style that you learned, and what were the dancing styles that you practiced?
Oh, it was mostly just swing.
Okay, that's very dynamic.
Well, but it wasn't. We were just, yeah.
Well, how often would you practice dancing?
Oh, I would say probably if you dated every weekend, you probably, well, it would be either movies or dancing. And
did you do lessons, or how did you learn how to dance?
Oh, you just learned from each other, you know. I think there were some who did take lessons, but we never did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we would have liked it, had we.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a good point that I think that's been that's a significant change. Is there's a lot less people who know how to dance. It's sort of a lost thing.
It just seems like it fell out of favor.
Yeah.
Okay. Is your 45 minutes getting close?
Oh no, we're at 30. But no, I got plenty of questions. So Vietnam. Let's go to then. What were you thinking about the war in Vietnam? What was your biggest fear?
Well, of course, I think we all were thinking it could get really, 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 really invasive. But I'm trying to think, other than people having to go to war and then them being treated so badly when they came home, it was a shameful thing. And but I can't really think that since my children were not old enough to be involved in that, and I didn't anticipate that we would be much involvement until you went, but
but so let's go back to then Korea. Go from Vietnam then back to Korea. I know it's strange.
Oh,
so how was the Korean War televised differently than the Vietnam War?
Well, if like you watched MASH, I was furious the night that Nick and his brother took Jean and I to the movie to see MASH, I mean. And I was insulted at the way they portrayed the nurses. And I was so I was so far removed from the reality of that but they made it look like it was just a heck of a lot of fun.
Good. So talk about when you met Papa. You met him at a bar dancing. Was he a good dancer?
He liked slow dances.
Okay.
He didn't really like to do very many fast things.
Okay. So talk about what was the first thing. What was it? The dancing that attracted you to him, or was it the Like, what was it? Talk more about that.
Well, I think we were both trying to impress each other, so naturally I thought he was a really nice guy, and he was really thoughtful, and he was just he was just kind of charming in his own way. But he was a problem because I was already engaged to one of the shirt tail relations of our family, and so I had to figure out how to get unengaged, and because I knew he was special. And
so, like, prearranged marriages?
No. But it was one where we were not related at all, but his uncle married Jim's grandfather was my uncle.
Gotcha. So that sounds more like incest.
No.
I know. I just can't follow. I know. I'm trying to be funny. So
No.
let's see here. So you had to break up this relationship that you had with somebody else in order to make it work with Papa.
Yeah.
And that's... So what was it you did? Was there some broken hearts along the way? Or?
Well, it was kind of sad.
Okay.
And because I really, really liked Jim, and he was very, very good to me. He was always gifting, and he was just thoughtful, and of course we were comfortable because we'd known each other for most of, probably we became aware of we met each other, and we shared cousins, so it was a big thing.
Yeah. I guess it just wasn't. Yeah, it was a different world. People shared cousins.
Yeah.
Different world. Well, here, I'm going to pass off the mic to some others that are going to ask some questions for you, because I'm sure they got more meaningful questions than I got. No? One question?
Okay, so after you got engaged to Papa, to Dad, then
We never got engaged.
Oh, you never got engaged.
I was only engaged once, and as soon as I got rid of that ring, I swore I would never have another.
Right, but you still had to have an engagement before you got married. How did you tell people you were?
Yeah.
You were just getting married.
Yes.
But you never had an engagement.
No.
How long was that before you started dating to when you got married?
Well, I think we met the summer I was on psych, and then, so it was, that was in the fall of 49, and then, oh no, we graduated in 50, so it was 42 then. And and I graduated. It was the summer of 52, and I graduated in 53.
And you got married in 53.
Right.
Tell the story of how Dad that he gave you a record.
Oh, well,
that's what you made. Where
we met at that bar, and so then he came. Well, I was in Warm Springs, and we had gone into Anaconda, and he had said, when we danced the first night, he said, well, he asked all the girls, what are you going to do when you graduate? And I said, well, I'm going to get married and have children. And but I didn't know that it was going to be him and his children. But anyway, so he called and asked if we could go out to a movie. And I said, well, you know I'm engaged. And he said, well, does that preclude that you can't go to a movie with me? And I said, well, not really. And so we went to the movie, and then we stopped and had a drink, and before he took me back to the nurse's home. But when he had come, what you wanted me to tell was that we had talked about it, but he would be invited to the wedding. That was it. And so he came and he brought a record, and it was both sides of the record, and it was, I'm trying to think the singer, but the title of it was, on one side it was I Went to Your Wedding, and on the other side it was You Belong to Me. So I thought that was, and my roommate was really thinking that was schmush, and she didn't want me to even think about it. But anyway.
And the rest is history.
Yep. Yes.
And what was the oddity of when you guys got married? That's really strange that Mama was pregnant at the same time after you guys got married. You and Mama were expecting 9 months apart or something like that.
Well, I wore the mother of the bride's outfit that next Easter.
Oh. So you were right. You wanted to get married and have babies.
Yes.
And what else?
I think
I'll just keep talking,
Well, so Papa, after you got married, so Dad was in college then. He went on the GI Bill?
Yes, he did go, but he didn't tell me that he was thinking of going to school until Rochelle was born, and he came and took us from the hospital, and on the way to my parents' home, because we were going to go back to Anaconda, and we were crossing the river when he said, and I definitely have decided that I am going to quit the railroad and go to school. And that was like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do that? But he got the GI Bill.
And you guys lived in the strip housing?
Yes. And
on campus?
Uh-huh. And it was really kind of fun. It was, everyone was pretty much in the same boat, and we were all having family, and it was kind of, but I felt we were very lucky to be going to school in Missoula, so that my family was really close. And then Papa Grubich came to see us often.
Oh. And then in the strip housing, did you have John too? You had Rochelle and John?
Yeah. Well, we only had Rochelle when we started school. And then we had this one unit, and it had a big smoky stove. And so every night when I would come home from my shift working at the hospital, I would be feeling kind of irpy anyway, and it was just awful. But we only lived there 1 month, and then they changed us to Silverbow, I think, this different street.
Oh.
And then we had a gas heater that didn't make smoke.
Oh. Anyhow, so before Papa graduated in 4 years, then he went to college for 4 years. So before
Actually, he had to do 5 because they didn't give him the right counseling. But he did it in 5.
And he graduated with a degree in
Sociology. Social worker.
And I know. And so by the time you left Missoula, you had how many kids?
Then we had you, so we had 4.
Within 4 years? Within 5 years. Yeah, because he had 5 years. And then you went to his first job out of college?
Well, we went back to Anaconda. No, we didn't. We did go to the first job.
Was that Walla Walla?
I'm trying to. Yes.
The state prison?
Yes. Yeah, Washington State Prison.
Yeah, Washington State Prison. As a counselor.
Yeah, he was a counselor, and liked it really well. And it was. I just remember that when he had. Isn't that funny? I can't remember exactly when we did leave the strip houses, and.
Well, I was a baby, so that would have been 58.
Yeah. So we did.
And then Teresa was born in Walla Walla. In 63. No, in 60. Teresa was born in 60.
Okay.
And 63, we were still in Walla Walla when Nick was born? No. Yeah.
We moved. We were moving, but we had to wait for Nick to be born.
In 63. And then you were moving to where?
To Tacoma.
And Dad started working at
McNeil Island, yes.
And he did not like that one.
No.
Right off the bat? Or he knew he made a mistake right off the bat?
Well, no, he liked Walla Walla, and he was happy with it. It was when we moved to McNeil Island that he was not. It was really political. But
right off the bat, so he knew he wasn't going to be happy there.
Yeah, it was the writing was on the wall.
Yeah.
And it was very cliquey and difficult. But he liked Walla Walla. He thought McNeil would be being a federal prison would be, well, it paid more money, and there were just better aspects about it. But
tell about the first house you bought was in Walla Walla.
Oh. Well,
and remember how much money you spent on your house?
I think it was $10,000
to buy it. But what was your house payment? Was like
80 some dollars, 82 or 86, something like that. And and we started at it was $199
a month. Income
in Walla Walla with our first out of
Walla Walla State Prison. He got $199 a month income.
Right.
And you guys raised 4 kids on that.
Oh, yeah.
5 with Teresa there. And then, so he did get a bump in raise going to federal prison.
Yes,
But then that turned out not.
But he found out that money wasn't quite that important.
So we were in Tacoma for 3 years. Lynette
3.5. I think it was
born in Tacoma, right? Lynette.
Yeah, Lynette was born when we lived on Darwin Court.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so in Lakewood. And then he went from federal prison to the state, wasn't it?
Yeah,
DVR?
he was working so he went to work for Folk Rehab. he decided he should probably stay out of prison for a while.
And where'd you move from Tacoma?
From Tacoma, are you giving me a geriatric test?
Yeah.
I think you are.
We were just catching up your life.
Oh.
So we went to Spokane.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. And we lived in a delightful old house that was just charming.
On Mission Avenue.
Uh-huh. And
Addison.
And it was very close to St. Aloysius Church.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just a real happy spot. But Nick was promoted and accepted that we would go to Wenatchee, to come here to Wenatchee. And so we did, with the promise that if we'll do it for a year, and if anybody, and at the end of the year, we could go back to Spokane, where we always thought we wanted to live, or I did. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we could go back to Spokane with Voc Rehab, if that's what we chose to do. And so when the time came, we had a family conference, and everybody gave their opinion, and we decided that this was where we wanted to stay. So but this was after 12 moves.
12 moves in.
From house to
in 10 years, 12 moves in 10 years. Or less, yeah, because Lynette was born.
Yeah.
A busy time. Well, I think our time is up.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay, all right. Then I guess a good question would be, after Papa got out of the Air Force, how was his transition into the civilian world?
As far as his health, he had been left with fungus in his ears.
Mm.
And so they had even had to keep him in for a long time. So he got when he was discharged, he got some a whole $15 a month for the fungus in his ears. And he went for a railroad physical because he was going to get on with as a brakeman, and the doctor said, "Oh, well, that's easy to do," and he put purple gentian purple.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, he put the purple gentian in Dad's ears and cleared it up, so that they had to stop his $15 a month.
Oh no! Oh no, that's horrible.
Well, yeah. Well,
Military's different nowadays.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh wow.
But it was interesting.
Did he talk about like what it was like working with people that had never served in the military versus civilians?
No, he really didn't talk. He enjoyed his time, but
He wasn't in combat.
no,
He
and
was a paper pusher.
there was he never was overseas or
Most of the time, wasn't he in Alaska?
yeah, the biggest share.
Yeah.
He was up in ADAC, which is very high.
Air Force,
Yeah. I'm just trying to see if he mentioned any sort of differences between the civilian world and the military, things that he noticed. But then again, I mean, people of his generation, they just did it, and they didn't want to forget it even happened.
Well,
that's what I'm
actually
noticing.
no, he didn't resent his military time, but I remember he said, it took him time to figure out that he wasn't the boss anymore of his life, and that he had to do what they chose to ask him to do, and the more he resented it or tried to circumvent it, he just made it difficult for himself. And so when he was up in ADAC, he had lots of time to figure out that the politics of the South isn't going to change because you're from Montana. He really resented in the military that there was definitely discrimination, and he couldn't understand why black and white couldn't go to the same chapel. And so he wrote his congressman about it, and the congressman was a real active one from Montana, and apparently Nick's letter to him rotated around, and the next thing he knew, he was on his way to ADAC.
Alaska.
Dang. You're getting punished for standing up to people.
For standing up for someone.
Wow. Yeah, no, it was a different time. Like, black people did not stand in the same form. They had to stand in the back of the formation for military formations and all that stuff. So
now,
that was something.
Was it that way in the Marines?
Well, not when I was in. No, but I mean, but when he was in, that was the thing. Like there was. That's something you could talk about, like pure discrimination.
Yeah.
That did exist. Like, I'm sure, there probably wasn't many non-white people coming into Missoula, and if that did happen, how were they received?
Oh, poorly. And just in our area alone, if in Deer Lodge, Montana, then that was where the state penitentiary was. They had laws on their books that black could not be seen out after dark, and there was definite laws and prohibitions that were hurtful, and consequently, Nick had friends that he had gone to school with, who he was mulatto, half Italian and half black, and he said that it was sad. And like even in Anaconda, there had been a case where a little boy had been harmed by someone, and then his brother was Nick's age, and they had gone to school together, and he described it that like it was normal, your normal life until you reached puberty, and suddenly there was a big wall, and you were on the other side, and that was, and yet he was a kid who they called Boo.
Oh, okay.
And in Anaconda, you could have all kinds of nicknames, and Nick was Bohunk because he was Croatian.
Interesting. Yeah. So what about, was it legal to have interracial marriage then?
I don't.
Yeah, it's just kind of trivial, but I know it was a thing.
Nobody did it.
Yeah.
Well, must have if he was mulatto.
Yeah, well, sure, but it wasn't. You didn't see it very often.
Yeah, definitely a different world. So you said that the creation of the television is one of the biggest things that has changed the dynamic of social dynamics. So talk about that.
I think so. To me, it's the biggest thing that it changed it in little ways and in big ways. You know, we see it, the impact it has had in our politics and in our society. But then you see little incidental things that just never would have risen before.
All right. Yeah. Well, we've been running for an hour. I'll give you one more question. What is the purpose of life? What is the meaning of life?
The meaning of life is, as I see it, is we're given a chance to become. And it's up to us to become the best we can.
Yes.
And there are some that have a much harder life, and there are others who just skate. And I can tell you, I think I've been a skater.
I don't think you have. I don't think you've been a skater.
Well, I don't know.
You've worked hard.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that at all. Like you walked every day. There was a point where you were walking every day. Like, who does that? You have had a very active social life.
Well,
You've definitely gone out and have increased the community, trying to raise everybody up.
well, no, not really, but it's been fun. Oh.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Well, I'm glad we could do this. It's been an hour.
And I'm so proud of you that you're going to go to the concert.
Yes, I'm going to go to Samantha's concert very
Good.
much. So I hope you all enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Be sure to like, subscribe. The biggest thing is I'm so happy you did not marry your second cousin. That's the biggest thing. I don't know how I would feel if I learned that Papa was your second cousin. I'm so happy that you didn't do that. Thank you so much. That's all right. Yeah.
Well, we weren't cousins.
Yeah, I know.
No, Jim.
No, the first one, the
Yeah,
one you broke
no.
it off with.
No, but Jim.
Well, you said he was your uncle. His
No,
uncles.
no, his uncle.
His
We
uncle
had the same uncle, but that uncle was married to his.
His aunt.
Yeah.
Well, if you have the same uncle, there's cousinry there.
Yeah, there's probably
But no.
three
Well-
or four removed.
I think it was like. Anyhow. we can do that.
It's all good. All right, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it. Be sure to like, subscribe, smash that bell for more data-driven updates. Bye.